Welcome to round 4 of the Blue-White Familiars PauperLeague. Here we are on the play and unfortunately with a no-lander. Our 6 is also not keepable as the bounce land cannot be played without another land in play. To be honest, bounce lands are the reason why this deck mulligans quite a bit, because we only have 15 lands in the deck that can be played on turn 1. On the other hand, they do a pretty good job at unmulliganing you, and that looks to be the case right here. We're gonna keep Faithful on top, as it's a nice defensive play if we are behind, and see what you're up against. Looks like Boros. Right, I would like to gain some life of the Faithful, but it's not that necessary. It's much more important that we spend our mana in an efficient way. So here we play Seagate and get a Muldrifter off of it. Opponents doing their Hawk trick, replaying the artifact they just bounced. But we also got our value creatures coming in the form of another Seagate and also playing out a second bounce land. Here we draw a familiar, perfect. But first things first, we're gonna play out a Muldrifter, as that spends our mana in the most efficient way. It's getting bolded, but no matter, it fills its purpose already. Opponent playing out more flyers. We should try to set up our defenses here. So I'm playing the Faithful to finally start getting some life. We'll be shuffling 2 lands off of Brainstorm plus Fetch and preordaining after that. So opponent is hitting us down to 11 here. Bolting our fam, how rude. So we're definitely not in the best spot here, but I'm gonna start off by snapping a Seagate, getting 2 mana in that deal. And planning on playing the Dignitary after this, so that's why I'm leading with Deep Analysis for maximum mana efficiency. Finding another Faithful, not bad. So here we are gonna deprive the opponent of his next combat step, and it turns out they had a Gulf Blast, which, if I were in their shoes, I would have snap blasted the Seagate in response to me snapping it. But looks like the opponent is more afraid of the Dignitary, which I can understand. We could log him out of all combat steps after all, but it's not what we're really planning on doing here. So looks like the Stonehorn plan is inevitably gone. But that's okay. We got other things to do. Finding a fam, excellent. Snapping on the Seagate to create more mana. And we do have War plus Snap, but we're lacking one familiar for the infinite life combo. We can still gain a decent amount of life here though. Snapping the wall, replaying it, getting back the snap, and passing the turn with it in hand in case the opponent has any removal for our familiar. Taking some damage here. An opponent is passing the turn, which is a little suspect with him having so much untapped mana and 5 cards in hand. Therefore I'm gonna start by playing out a Seagate, getting a deep analysis off of it. Playing it out and flashing it back. And at this point I think I'm fine with risking a snap on the wall to get some more life and test the waters, since even though it could get burned out in response, we got 2 backup walls in case this one doesn't happen. And if it does, we got a decent chance to get some things going for next turn. Are attacking us for 8, but looks like we're able to keep gaining more life than they are able to take away from us. Some extra flyers might of course change the equation, but we already have the double mnemonic wall snap your guys combo lined up. We're gonna start off with the Muldrifter evoke trick though. Snapping it before it dies and getting 3 mana that way. Now I'm gonna start snapping his bird tokens. I'm not so keen on bouncing the other guys, as he will get value from replaying the Skyfishers and Hawks and Inspectors. So even though I could effectively prevent him from attacking me at all, I feel like there's no need for that. I'm gaining enough life at this point. So I'll only bounce the tokens to get some extra mana, and because those do not provide him any value. That's enough for me for now. Gonna discard some lands and pass the turn. Here we're only lacking the Sage Row to get the win, so I'm just all in on assembling that combo. I do not care my Muldrifter getting firebolted, neither I care for the wall. And the 8 damage coming in is just pointless at this point. Opponent is also Gulf Blasting my mnemonic wall. I will try to save that one because he's playing this in the end step, so I'm not worried that he would like journey one of my fams later, which is basically one of the few actions I would care about. Looks like he's got double Gulf Blast, but whatever. I still got another wall in hand and a mire to return the other one. And here we ended up drawing the Sage Row naturally. So that will do the trick. You definitely want to auto-yield to all the triggers from the Faithfuls, Walls, etc. except for the Maldrifter Evoke trigger, because you're actually responding to that one with snaps and flickers. But for the rest, it's definitely necessary to speed up the game in any way possible to get the win fast enough. Even so, we've durdled around for long enough, but we should have enough time to finish this match on time. Game 2 against Boros Monarch, we sided in 2 Aven Rift Watchers, as those do a pretty good job at stopping their flyers from attacking us. 1 Negate against Journey to Nowhere and his other removal spells. 1 Hoodwink against Bounce Lands, and should he bring in stuff like Relic of Progenitus or so. And a Reaping the Graves, as Graveyard Recursion works pretty nicely in this kind of grindy matchup. And we cut the 1 Stonehorn, as I believe Rift Watchers are just a better plan than Stonehorn in this matchup. 1 Serrated Arrows. I could see leaving that one in if they like exile my Sage Row with a Bojuka Bok to have an alternative way of winning, but that seems a little thin. 1 Brainstorm, 1 Deep Analysis, and 1 Seagate Oracle. We are on the draw with a pretty slow and land heavy hand, but I feel like it's fine, as long as we can make a land drop for every turn and hopefully draw something. Preordain should do a good job at letting us find it. I'm still gonna start off with the wilds to thin my deck a little bit. Preordaining both cards to the bottom here, drawing a Seagate. Opponent again deploying their Hawk and getting value off of their Mana Rock. We get our Seagate and we only see more lands. We'll take the bounce lands and stop complaining, as we got a Maldrifter lined up in 2 turns and hopefully we can draw something else for next turn. And perfect, here we have a Rift Watcher come down right on time. So this is a little weird one, opponent bolting the Seagate instead of the Rift Watcher. Sure, bolting Rift Watcher will gain me 2 life, but it would allow him to get some beats in. While the Seagate is basically not doing anything, it has already gained me a card, and that's all I want from him really in this matchup. Opponent playing out more flyers, but I got the air covered pretty nicely at the moment. Going to play some Faithfuls to start gaining life, and I might as well snap the Maldrifter. Opponent is tap out, so there's no risk of running into like a Fire Blast. There's a battle screech, but that's still not quite enough. And here I figure that in the upkeep I will hoodwink on their bounce land to slow their deployment. And I'm doing this in the upkeep so that I can snap my Rift Watcher and get an extra mana that way. Satyr is not what we need quite yet, so I'm gonna keep him in my hand for now. Preordain finds me a Seagate and a Mnemonic Wall, which I'm both content with. Therefore, I'm just gonna play out the Rift Watcher and not cycle the Ash Barrens, so that I retain the wall on top of my library. More flyers coming, be my guess. Opponent still doesn't want to attack, so presumably he's light on removal and cannot punch through my defenses profitably. Starting off with a Seagate, giving me a snap, perfect. I'm gonna just play out the wall, leave my shields down. I cannot save none of my creatures with the snap, but I feel like none of them is so important that I need to try and save them from any removal the opponent might have. An opponent again goes for the wall, which I'm not even sure is the correct one to kill. In fact, I think he should just go for my flyers and at least try to get some beats in, but this way I'm just going to run away with my life points out of his squadron's reach. Another Rift Watcher's not bad, but we would kind of prefer some more card draw action, so I'm gonna start off with a snap on a Muldrifter, knowing that the opponent is light on removal, so this might work, and even if not, we got an extra snap. Replaying the Drifter with Evoke so that I can draw more cards once I snap him back again. Playing the Muldrifter out, this time full cost. And playing the Rift Watcher. Now my defenses are truly impenetrable. Opponent doesn't even try. Thus I feel like I can just let one of the Rift Watchers die and save Flicker for more card draw on Muldrifters. Planning on to Flicker this one and the other one for billions of cards. Finally we find a familiar and play that one out, again knowing that the opponent probably doesn't have more than like one removal spell, which we do have the counter for. Turns out he has more removal spell, in which case I'm not quite getting why he's not killing my creatures in response to flickers and snap, as that would have been much better use of his spells, but I won't complain about it. So here I'm gonna return the Fam with Mortuary Mire, get him into my hand with Brainstorm, and try to set up the win. We've got some lands to shuffle away. Opponent pyroblasting the flicker, so we're just gonna snap the Muldrifter instead. And finally we find the second familiar. We have to pass the turn though. At this point my biggest concern is like the opponent exiling my graveyard, as notice that we have all the snaps in the yard and all but this one flicker in the graveyard. So I'm going to use this flicker to try and save the familiar, which doesn't end up working. But if the opponent had like a relic or a Bojikabok at this point, suddenly that's a way we could lose this game. But luckily that doesn't end up being the case, and we even draw Reaping the Graves in case we needed to return any creatures. Also note that the opponent playing their Monarch in this matchup is another alternative win condition for us, as we could just mill them the hard way without Sage Row Denizen. But it looks like we've got the win in hand, so that is what we are going to go for. Opponent seems to be on the very macabre plan, which I don't think is powerful enough against us. Exiling just 2 cards does not quite do the trick most of the time, while Bojikabok seems much more effective, especially if you can reset it with bounce lands. But anyway, we've got the job done. To be honest, our deck really takes prey on matchups like Boros Monarch. But let's see how we can finish up this league. See you in round 5.